Howdy, it's Tubalcain again, and this video is to show off the Logan lathe that I bought several weeks ago at an estate sale. And if you haven't seen that video, it's in 3 parts called Tubalcain Goes to an Estate Sale, and that's where I show my purchasing this lathe and all of the accessories. It's a 3-part video, so take a look at that. Now this Logan 10-inch lathe is a model 820, and that's marked right on the quick change gearbox, and there's the serial number, and it looks like it's about 1946 or 1947 manufacture, so that was right after the Second World War when you were able to buy machinery again after the shortages. Nice little lathe, quite dirty. I have not cleaned it up much. I spent a little time on it, but mainly on the chucks and so on, but it's still filthy dirty and greasy and full of chips, and that is yet to come, and I doubt that I will paint it. But let's take a look at some of the features of this lathe.
Country on my way home, I got the Logan lathe loaded in my trailer, pulling it with my old Toyota. It was pretty easy to load. 4 men helped me roll it up the ramp. There's rollers underneath it. Casters, cheap casters. Now I got 10 miles to go to ride back home, and hopefully somebody will help me unload it there.
It's a flat belt drive, leather belt, which I had to shorten up a little bit because it was too relaxed. 3 cone pulleys, and then the back gear, so it gives 6 speeds, and then there's 2 speeds over on the other pulley, which I'll show you. So there's a total of 12 speeds in this lathe, including the back gear. Now, one thing I did not like about these lathes is that when you open up the belt guard here, which is very, very heavy because it's cast iron, they didn't use aluminum, but boy, if that should slam down on you, it would be a finger pincher, but there is a prop for that. But as you lower it, it also tightens the belt. You raise it, and the belt is in the relaxed position. But one has to be very careful of this so you don't smash your hands. And I mean, it's heavy. Logan lathes don't get a lot of respect, but they really are a good machine, and everything's cast iron. They're very well built, and I have used a lot of them when I worked in various shops. But behind this belt guard, look at all that paint that's peeling, and that was the original color, but it was painted green and then gray. But whoever painted it was a moron and painted right over oil, because that paint is just peeling everywhere. And at the auction site, there was a wire brush there, and I gave it a quick brushing just so some of that paint didn't come home with me. But there are 2 steps on this pulley, and of course on that motor pulley, and I have to make an adjustment. I cannot get the belt on the larger pulley, which would be the slower speed, because of an interference right here. So I got some adjusting to do. I'm not sure exactly what I got to do, but that'll get done in due time. One downside of this lathe, and many of the South Bends too, if you do not have the collet attachment, you have a relatively small spindle hole there, and that's always a bottleneck when you do larger work. But since I have several lathes, that isn't going to be a real problem for me. But if you only have one lathe, it can be problematic. Opening this guard, all of these gears seem to be in real good shape, other than needing a cleaning. Cast iron gears. Here's the feed reverse. When I was a teenager, my dad had 2 lathes in the basement, a little South Bend and a Logan, pretty much just like this. And we always called it the Peg Leg Lathe, like a pirate, because the back motor and all of that drive is supported by what I call a peg leg. In this case, it's a piece of 1 1/4 inch pipe, but some of them I have seen also had a cast iron leg there rather than pipe. But to move this lathe around is kind of a nuisance because of that extra leg there. Now this thing is mounted on casters. Not a real good idea. I did not do it, but it did help us load it at the auction site. But there was no caster on the peg leg, so I went down to the hardware store and I bought that little, or I was going to buy that little caster deal there, 3 casters. I think they call it a furniture mover, but it was $17. So then I went to Menards. I didn't buy that. I went to Menards and it was $6. So that's where I got it, but it allows me to move this around, but the peg leg still doesn't follow real well, if you know what I mean. Yugga dugga dugga. I already put a hanger there. I like to have wrenches and hammers and everything handy on every one of my lathes. Dedicated tool, since I own 100 crescent wrenches. Here's the tag that is on the quick change gearbox. Model 820, and this lathe will get down to a real fine feed of just a little bit under 0.0018. So this is capable of very fine feeds compared to the Atlas lathe, and I like that feature. I do not necessarily like the way the back gears work with this plunger, but I guess it's adequate. And I still got to go through this lathe and clean it and lubricate it. I have not oiled it yet. Those of you who follow my videos know that I have another Logan lathe, actually 2 of them. They're the 9-inch or 10-inch Montgomery Ward Logan lathes, and they are not full featured. This one has a clutch along with the feed change lever with the 3 positions and then the half nut, very similar to the way South Bend lathes are set up. But the smaller Ward's, Monkey Ward's lathe do not have a clutch, and everything is done through the half nut lever, which is a way of making them cheaper, but it's not all that desirable. You will find that I have done another video on this lathe because when I got this home I realized it had the original tailstock oil dauber. And there it is. That's kind of unusual to find those. Most people don't even know what it is, but look at my other video on making this a dauber. I set up the other Logan lathe with the turret attachments, and I make up a bunch of those. You might like that. Back to the tag again. Notice that it says screw cutting and turret lathes. Logan made an awful lot of turret lathes, and as I mentioned, when I worked at Osborne Engineering, they had dozens of turret lathes, and they were all Logans. Well, there was one nice South Bend, but almost all Logans, and they were good lathes. Well, we ran millions of parts on them for little trolling motors. Excuse me. This is another view of the peg leg, and notice that the casters raise this lathe about 2 inches. I probably will take the casters off eventually when I locate this where I want, because I think that this is slightly unsafe. However, I was able to load and unload from a trailer with the aid of those casters, but it was very topsy-turvy because of that extra weight over there on the drive side, and no casters yet on that peg leg. You know, there are hammer and chisel mechanics in every shop, or even if it's a home shop, and at some point somebody took a cutting torch, hello, and cut a hole in there, I suppose, to clean the chips out. And it's rougher than a cob, and I don't like it, but what are you going to do? If you watch that other video, you'll know that I bought this cart, also $1 on casters, made by Lion, with 2 nice drawers. And someone in another video, a viewer, aptly named this the chuck wagon. So that's what I've been calling it. So this is my chuck wagon, and I rather like it. I can roll it around any place I want it and keep all the accessories for this lathe. And there's the 4-jaw chuck back there, and down on the bottom there's a couple more 4-jaw chucks. They still need a good cleaning. And some of the other accessories I've got in the drawers, smaller chucks. So that's pretty awesome. That drill chuck right here actually looks like it's never been used. It's in pretty good shape, but there was no chuck key, and it is made in Czechoslovakia, or was made in Czechoslovakia, and I got a whole drawer full of Jacobs and Supreme chuck keys, and nothing fits it. I did find one other Morphodite chuck key here that might, it comes close, but it's not really the correct key. Right here. It might be close enough for me to tighten it, but other than that, it looks like kind of a nice chuck. And how often do you see something from European countries? Not very often. I don't have very much in the top drawer yet, but in the second drawer here I got that large face plate, and there's the smaller dog plate. And if you saw the other video, you know that I got gobs and gobs of extra jaws, but almost none of them fit any of these chucks. It's a shame. This is quite a nice 3-jaw chuck that came with this, but no reverse jaws. But it's made in Poland, and there was no chuck key, so I've made a chuck key, but it's just made out of soft steel. That took about an hour to make. And when I get time or get some tool steel, I'll make one out of tool steel. I think I'll do a video on that too, and also how to heat treat it. But I made it good and heavy, and I Loctited that handle in there, so at least I have a chuck key to get started with on this lathe. But that's a nice Polish chuck, and I did clean it very lightly with 320 sandpaper because it had some surface rust on it. Back when I was in my prime and I worked at that shop with all the Logan lathes, the boss wanted all these lathes to have the belt tension released at the end of the day, so he could just look over the whole shop, and every lathe better have that guard up, because that indicated that the belt was released, the tension was released. And so it was real easy compared to looking at South Bend lathes. And I remember my shop teacher in high school went around and he checked that lever down at knee height on those South Bend lathes to make sure that those belts were relaxed. I was always amazed at how smoothly and quietly that these Logan lathes ran. I can hardly hear it. And there is a reverse. Be very careful you don't hit the reverse and spin that chuck off. That's one bad thing about threaded chuck spindles like that. But I noticed here when I started to clean up the tool post, and that was filthy dirty. This tool holder here is a Carbide tool holder, so that's one I probably won't use much, but notice it says Williams Carbide, and I put that on there so I can easily identify it. But the tool bit sticks straight in here on a Carbide rather than coming at an angle on the traditional ones. This would be a good one for me to use on that little road shaper. I wish it was a straight one, then it would be perfect for the road shaper. The first thing I did on this lathe was to rewire it, and I put a 3-prong grounded plug on the motor. It was just 2-wire. And also I did the same to the work light here. And surprisingly, when I plugged in the work light, it worked. Even the light bulb worked. That's kind of unusual. And this was in a building where you can see the birds had their way with this. These are hot, but surprisingly, these old fixtures like this that are articulated in 3 spots get that light right in there where you need it. So if you don't burn yourself on it, they are quite a useful fixture. And it's mounted directly to the bed back there, or not to the bed, to the chip pan. And I'm going to like that. A little bit better than one of those quartz, I guess they're quartz, they cost about $100. I take a short break from showing you that 10-inch lathe to showing you this, and I don't believe I ever put this on YouTube, but I bought this little Logan, actually it's a Monkey Ward's Logan lathe, last winter, and I don't even have it up and running yet. I had ideas of taking it to a steam show and running it with an old engine with my grandson, showing people how to do a simple turning job, because you know there's a lot of people that do not even know what a lathe is. But this is very similar to the Logan lathe that I have in the basement that I've done many videos with. The tailstock is off in another spot here, but I started to clean this up and never quite finished it. I'll show you the drive here in a second, but there's the guard, and came with a 3-jaw chuck and several other chucks as well. And I bought this on Craigslist, but notice that on the carriage it does not have a clutch. It just has a half nut lever, so you do both the threading and the feeding with the half nut lever, which really wears out the half nut, by the way. But it was a cheaper way to manufacture them. And of course on this one there is no quick change gearbox. The one in the basement has a quick change gearbox, but I do have the change gears for this. But when I bought this, other than what I told you about the steam show, there were a bunch of other accessories with this, including a milling attachment. So I actually was buying it for the attachments at the time, you know, thinking, boy, I got a lot of extra chucks and different things that came with this. So it was kind of a bonanza for me in the middle of the winter during the doldrums when I had nothing to do, and I was quite excited. But when I got it home, it was so cold that I wasn't able to do a whole lot with it in this garage, and I don't have room in the basement. This is the motor and the drive for that Monkey Ward's lathe, and whoever took this apart originally took the shaft off where it mounts right here, I believe, so they wouldn't have to cut the belt. And I'm glad of that, but they also had to cut the wire here. Although that thing needs rewiring anyway. Look at that. Wow. You like that? I wonder if that meets the National Electrical Code, do you suppose? But anyway, I was going to take that motor off if I took it to a steam show and just belt this, possibly even with a flat belt, run it from a Maytag engine or one of my little antique engines. That's coming up soon. I don't know if I'll get that done. I got too many projects. I believe I failed to mention that little Ward's lathe actually is a table model lathe. That's why I had it sitting on a dolly just so I could move it around here. I had to store it under my tractors because I have so little room left. But you ask, why did you get another lathe? You must have 5 or 6 of them, and I would have to answer, yes, I do have too many lathes, and you don't need that many, but it is nice to have 2 or 3 so you don't always have to change chucks. You know, you can leave a 3-jaw on one of them and a 4-jaw on the other, and so on, and leave them set up in the middle of a job and then go over and do a second operation on another lathe. But the reason I got several of these Logan lathes, I would like to do a whole series on them, like I've done a series on the Atlas, and I've done a series on the South Bend, and those are on my website. But those are like a complete course, one with 40 chapters and one with 50. And I would like to do something like that if I get time, but I've just got so many other projects I'm working on and making so many other videos, there just isn't time to do all that. And I also wanted to do a series on the shaper, as well as the Bridgeport milling machine, which I have started. So as you can see, it's a monumental job to do 40 or 50 chapters and put it together as a course, but that's what I would like to do in my spare time. And I have no spare time, even though I'm fully retired. I go 8 or 10 hours every day. Okay, enough about that trivial stuff, but I hope you enjoyed this little video on the Logan lathe, and you can expect to see a lot more of it, but you cannot expect to see this thing painted up. I used to spend a lot of time painting things and cleaning them up and that, and enjoyed that, but it's something I guess I got out of my system, and I really don't care to do it anymore. So just a good cleaning will suffice on this, and it'll be in its work clothes for the remainder of its life. And speaking of life, I hope I can get some of these projects done in my lifetime. But I got a friend that said, Mr. Peterson, I got so many projects, I'll never finish them in my lifetime. But he said, it's just a wonderful way to spend your life because you always got something to do. Always something to do. We don't sit around in chairs. Oh, I just read an article in last night's paper that said your easy chair will kill you. And it went into great detail how just sitting around shortens your life. So don't do that. Stay active with your machinery like I'm doing. I know a lot of you guys do. So with that little admonition, this is Tubalcain saying so long for now.